Welcome to our panel. Last year we discussed and passed almost unanimously, I think there was one dissenter, the assertion that we would not recognise our industry in 10 years. Before we get into this year's debate, I'm going to ask last year's, I call them protagonists, I'm not sure if that's the right word, to join us. And we'll have a short discussion 1 year on about the progress that they've seen over that past year, because it'll be interesting to see if there are comments about the developments that have happened. So, in which case, for those of you who were here last year, the names will not be new. On the far right, we've got Dominic Stone, who is the Multimedia Solutions Executive at IBM. David Peto, Chief Executive Officer and founder of Aframe. And Bruce Devlin, who is the Chief Media Scientist at Dalet. So, if we can move on to the next slide, please. This was a rather complicated debate. There we go. Had lots of facets. So this is what we said was the things that were going to happen as we move on and as our industry changes. So I'd like our panel to just pick one of those or some aspect of things that have happened since last year that reflect upon the motion that was passed, which I'll remind you, because you won it, the fact that we're not going to recognise the industry. Are we working towards that still? Do you want to revise thoughts? Anything you've learned since last year?
Well, I'll skip the one on cloud because I'll perhaps let David talk more to that, but to me that has been one of the key significant items in that list. The one that has occupied a lot of thinking for me and my colleagues has been a fair way down the list, the power that has moved from the CTO and is now shared with other management functions. That was something that we were talking about a couple of years ago and a year ago. But in a way it was, it's one of those things where it's easy to say, but when you're actually approaching media companies, you do endlessly and inevitably find yourself talking to the lead technologists, and that usually means the CTO. But in the last 12 months, that has been a significant change. I now find at IBM that I'm being approached by lines of management directly who say, look, could you come and talk to us about X, Y, or Z? At some point, they will refer it back through their technology departments, but in many cases, they are being left to make the decision themselves. And that has had a major effect on not just the way the decisions are made, but actually the way the technologies are developed. Because you think differently when you know that you're going to approach a technology for a particular niche within an organization rather than the organization as a whole.
Oh, very good. Thanks, Dominic. David?
I'd probably go for the second bottom one, actually, because the top one has changed, and we've seen a lot of movement out in the last year. That's dull. The geographic distribution of resources. So the nice thing with us is everything with Aframe is data. So every request we get via our website is tracked and understood, and what they said, and where they've come from, where their IP is even. And what we've seen a lot coming into us recently has been people from areas of the globe that traditionally wouldn't be related to broadcast, let's say, being brought in by broadcast customers to talk about how they can connect them up to make use of either different levels of expertise or, quite frankly, more cost-effective ways of working. Just one example being versioning, translation, those kind of areas. Now, once you put something up in the cloud, you can have them all work on it securely off of a stream, but they could be doing that in India or from home, freelancers, right? So we've seen a big shift in the number of things we're involved in areas of the globe that wouldn't be considered traditional.
Because I think traditionally we always knew that big feature movies could be done all over the world, but you're saying that now is applying to a lot of other disciplines in the media industry.
Well, it just is because the rise of this freelancer-based economy that we're getting, obviously you've got Uber and everything else, people are starting to see the ability to do, not necessarily going to do the VFX from someone based at home in Singapore, but that person could easily be doing all the translation for your Southeast Asian view off of the back of a secure system, as an example.
Very, very good. Bruce, your pick.
I'm going to pick sort of two halves of one. One was actually going to quote Thomas Edwards of Fox, who stood up at the SIMPTE conference in October and said, by 2020, Fox is not going to buy any more kit. And he said that very confidently, and the room fell silent, and some people started looking at their bank accounts and thought, this is a bit worrying. And then after that statement, I went round and sort of talked to some of the user community who actually buy that kit. And some people said, yeah, that's what we want to do. That's definitely what we want to do. And then when probed a little bit harder about how they're actually going to achieve that goal of having everything virtualized and turning David into a multi-gazillionaire, which I'm sure he won't have any problem with at all, there wasn't a clear plan on how that was going to take place. And so the other half of the thing I was going to talk about was major customer shift from CapEx to OpEx. Certainly the from CapEx part of that statement has started happening. But
You're going to worry me if it isn't going somewhere else.
Well, it's kind of, there's certainly a pause there. And the desire to go out and buy appliances nowadays seems, and I use the word seems carefully, to be a trend, particularly when talking to an American customer base. Mm-hmm. However, when I was wandering around Interby and with my broken Japanese and the assistance of a translator talking to everyone in Japan, appliances are still it. The appliance market still has a good, strong 5-year life. Out till 2020 in Japan. So I'm seeing huge geographical inconsistency, but definitely in the sort of the Americanish, UK-ish economy, the move towards virtualization is still strong.
Right, so globally, again, your rate of change might vary in that sense.
Your house is at risk if you do not keep up the payments on your appliance.
So you guys still comfortable in your own skins about what we achieved last year? We're still on track, basically. Yep.
Yeah.
Good.
10 years out, definitely.
Right. So, thanks for that. I think it was useful to go back and look at some of the things from last year. So let's move on to the main topic of our debate. Where's the money? Those of you who've experienced this before will know you don't have to take this too seriously. This is the last session of the conference, and hopefully it's for some time for some fun with a bit of a serious twist. Just to sort of set the scene, I kind of remember the statement, we've all heard it, that we overestimate the speed of change, but we underestimate its impact. So let's see if that applies again now. So let's take a look at the motion. So this year we have a new topic, and it's not going to be a win or lose one, because you actually have a choice of 3. I will be looking to Ben to tell me at some stage that the app is still working to enable you to vote, but if you can't, as I said, the cards are there. So our 3 speakers will each have 5 minutes to present their view on where the growth, and I remember that word growth, it's not absolute size necessarily, growth for the technology supply community will come from. And at the end, of course, you get to vote. Each of them will seek to convince you that in 5 years or less, one of these 3 business sectors will be key to your future success. At the end of their presentations, you'll get to decide where the money is. Is it in traditional broadcasters? And remember, the question is there still growth in the traditional broadcast business? Is growth going to come from other sectors, business and industrial sectors? And I'm sure David will widely define what business and industry. Sometimes we say anything that's not broadcast, but it's a wide definition. Is the most promising growth going to come from business and industry? And then finally, a very different approach that you ought to give up on these big infrastructure type areas and go for the mass market commodity products, low production, distribution, OTT over the internet or whatever. Dominic's going to take that particular mantle. So this is the motion, and you will see it again before we vote. To help us unravel the detail of that, we've got our 3 protagonists who support different aspects of the motion, and they'll try and convince you of their view of the world. I'm going to give them each 5 minutes to put their case, and they'll be talking against the clock. We won't see it this year, but you will hear it as your time gets closer. So the tension will rise. At the end, if there are any comments before we vote, if anyone feels that they want to influence the direction, I'll give you a chance to add your comments in as well. So, let's move forward. So once again, here's the motion, and that's the motion our presenters will address, and you're going to select one of the three. Bruce, through a very undemocratic choice, you're coming up first to put the case for traditional broadcasters. Your 5 minutes will start when you utter your first word, and you should see a clock down there to know where you're going.
I'm going to do this through the power of mime in that case. So, broadcasters. Now, in some ways, I've got the rump end of this conversation because most of you have strong opinions about broadcasters and they probably differ from mine. I've been very fortunate in my career. I went to Cambridge University and I met some very interesting people there, one of whom was called Tim. And he explained to me that one of the best ways to make a medium-sized fortune is to start off with a very, very big one. And with a little bit of help from Johnny Walkers and Ladbrokes, his family has been working steadfastly at that over the generations to try and give themselves a medium-sized fortune. So why is that relevant? Well, the broadcasters are the ones sitting on the medium-sized, well, potentially very, very big fortunes at the moment. They've got all the money, they've got the content, they've got the eyeballs. It's their market share to lose. I've never met anyone yet who voluntarily gives up their big fortunes because some kids come along with a bit of YouTube and say, hey, look, we can do this better, faster, lighter, cheaper. People like to hold on to their revenues. People like to make certain that those revenue streams they've got coming in that finance their corporations are maintained. So just because the viewing habits are changing doesn't mean that the big corporations are going to sit on their thumbs and go, you know what, we'll let them have it. We like sleeping in caravans and, not dining in nice restaurants like you have here. So I know that those big customers, the broadcasters as they're called today, are going to change their habits. And if they suddenly figure out that the best way to attract that new audience who now has reached revenue generating age is to move out of the great big monolith that they're currently in and do their business some other way, they're going to do it. And I know they're going to do it because we're talking to various companies about how they do it. Dalet is a MAM vendor. What is MAM? Well, having worked for Dalet now for a couple of years, I've come to realize that MAM is actually a de-siloization change management Trojan horse, disguised as a piece of technology that goes in to streamline workflows. What we actually do is some kind of psychological counseling to help our customers do broadcasting in a completely different way to the one that they've grown up with. We heard earlier that silos don't talk to other silos within organizations. The people selling adverts don't talk to the people who receive the adverts. So there's a mismatch between the money and the technology. If you're going to do stuff for better margins, if you're going to maintain your market share, and if bright young things are coming along with disruptive business models, that has to be eliminated from your organization. And if you as vendors aren't selling products that fit into this new way of thinking, you're not going to be around very long. So part of our de-siloization strategy as a MAM vendor, as Dalet, is actually to work with lots and lots of different vendors who are specialists and niche in their own niches and know what they're doing and know what value they bring to our customers. So I believe the broadcasters are going to adapt. They're going to find a way to sit on that large pile of money that they currently make. They're not going to let all of that advert revenue just trickle out the door. They're going to fight to preserve it. And they're going to need kit to do that. It might not be physical kit, it might be virtual kit, but they're still going to be spending that money that they already have. And in a way, because they've already got the money and they've already got the revenues, they should be in a better position, providing they've got some good management, to spend it with us, the manufacturers who parasitically leach that money into our own organizations, to help them become bigger and better. So I think the broadcast community and those that really get it and really understand how the new consumers of media are going to allow monetization of that media, those that really get it are going to be buying new kit and are going to be broadcasting in different ways. And I think the term mass media is going to be an important one because that's really the USP of what the existing broadcasters have. They have the rights to attract very, very large audiences and to do it in a way that people who are targeting, oh, Mike, is that me? I'm much more relaxed than that. So I think the big organisations who have the audiences, they have the budgets, and they have the ability to change are going to do it. I think there will be a lot of competition from other sectors, particularly sectors that don't really use video very much at the moment, but are starting to understand video, will challenge for our attention as manufacturers. But I think if we know our customers, we know what our customers are trying to do, and we believe that our customers are going to have a successful business model, why wouldn't we as broadcast manufacturers get the best growth from those customers that we already know, and we can already help them into a better future? Change management,
Well
Trojan
done.
horse.
Excellent, Bruce. You could have had another 2 seconds.
I don't like to overtalk.
So now we move on to David. And David's going to put the case to say that you need to find these new markets in the business and industrial area.
Isn't industrial areas?
Yeah, industrial areas, possibly, yeah. That's
Okay.
where the growth is. Off you go, David.
Alrighty, by the way, before I start, does anyone remember the old TV show Nightmare, where you used to walk through virtual worlds? That was a thing when you were dying, wasn't it? Anyway, so let me start with this, because I wanted the title of our one really to be this, more than anything else. Whether you can hear this. Right?
Show me the money.
Right. This is you and me probably on a Monday morning at your desk, or that's how you feel, right? Show me the money, please. Right, but who is going to be your all-star football player that is going to help you through to glory and make a whole ton of money? So let me introduce to you 3 people who I think are going to do this for you. One is called Jim. Jim is a 25-year veteran of the Arkansas Highway Patrol. Number 1. 2 is Toshi. And Toshi works for Toyota in Japan. And 3 is Janoi. And Janoi is a student in Hyderabad in India. Now, all 3 of these people are going to have video crashing into their lives at a rate of knots that is unprecedented. And the good news for us is that all the things that we care about, quality, encryption, security, speed, reliability, are the most important thing to the way that video is going to get involved with these people's lives. So let's talk about Jim. Jim is going to be given a body camera. Can't argue with it. Jim is going to get one, if not now, within the next year. And there are 1 million gyms in the United States alone. That excludes Border Patrol, that excludes paramedics, that excludes everybody else who has contact with members of the public. And funnily enough, when it comes to being able to decide who that person was on the other end of that body camera, that had better be good quality video. And that had better be encrypted for chain of custody. Number 2, Toshi. Toshi is an assembly line worker at Toyota's major factory building Priuses. Toshi is going to have everything he does filmed on almost every single step of the production line for quality, for safety, and for training. And the quality of that is going to be absolutely crucial, because how are you going to tell that Toshi, or the robot that Toshi is doing, has actually put that nut on properly that's attached to the accelerator? Because if you can't, you end up with cars that keep going and don't stop, which, funnily enough, will cost you a lot of money. So putting in a big system to handle the video for that suddenly looks like remarkably good value. Now, Janoi is a student in Hyderabad, but Janoi wants to learn at MIT. But Janoi can't go to MIT because, unfortunately, he can't fly there and live there and hasn't got the money. So he is what's called a MOOC, people who are learning online. Now, the quality of that video is crucial, because you've got to be able to read what the lecturers put up on the back of the screen. It's got to be encrypted, because you don't want other people nicking the video, you don't want people stealing it and downloading it. And it's got to be speedy to some pretty poor bandwidth locations. We kind of have a bit of experience of that last time I checked. Now, those 3 are just 3 very simple examples of areas that are going to be absolutely huge within the next 5 years. And outside of them, let's do some other examples. Delta Airlines does 1,000 video projects a year for internal comms only. HSBC has 3 central studios, one of which is personally for the CEO, and an entire internal CDN. And the quality of that they matters a big difference even for their internal teams. Dassault Systems, who make rather nice large aircraft carriers and also planes, film, again, every single part of the process. Again, for compliance, regulation, and it has to be hugely high quality and very secure. And the good news for everyone here, by the way, is some of these people can't use the cloud. So that doesn't necessarily help me, but it might help everybody else. Now, the good news is these markets are actually unbelievably easy to get into. Marketing to these people is not rocket science. It is changing the way that you go using online techniques, using emailing and PR and marketing and using your websites and everything else you already know. And the good news is they already love SaaS. So you're not trying to convince somebody who you've been selling to for 30 years. They want this. So if you want to change your revenue mix to SaaS and get those valuations, this is a great way to do it. And finally, it really is doing what we preach. So 65% of our revenue is now non-broadcast. It'll probably be 70% by next year. And this is where we see it going. But the great news is there's room for everybody, because this is huge.
Brilliant. Are we saving the best to last, Dominic?
Hope not.
Dominic, take the stage.
I'm already nervous about the heartbeat. So the only thing is whether it's the one in the background or my own. So here I am essentially championing the small guy, all of those myriad companies that contribute to commoditized solutions and to open source and to the technologies, OTT, where there's hundreds and hundreds of different small players. I think I'm uniquely positioned to talk about this, given as I do working for the company IBM, which I think by any dimension you could probably describe as a typical small company, really. Still perhaps not, but I'll do my best. I think the first thing that is important about the commoditized business of media is the word fragmentation. We live in a world where hapless, and I was talking about this earlier, hapless CTOs have just about lost the war of trying to enforce us all to use the same laptop or to use the same device at work. And indeed, within media companies, it's no longer possible to have one single edit system. It's no longer possible to have one single standard. A software engineer said to me the other day, the nice thing about standards is there's so many to choose from. This sort of leads you to wonder what the point of it all is, but the reality of it is we do live in this incredible multiplicitous world. I used to work for a TV station that was built by Philips, end to end. It was a Philips site. I remember talking at the point where I was trying to promote the use of Aspira to one of the big media companies in the UK, and their CTO said, "You do realise we're a Signiant shop." And it's an interesting observation because no company is one shop anymore. No supplier builds end to end, not even IBM. We live in a world of partnerships. We live in a world of outsourcing. We live in a world of supporting underlying infrastructure with lots and lots of small, innovative products. When media asset management, which was a subject close to my heart for many years and still is, companies like IBM, indeed BT, made worthy attempts to build their own media asset management offering, but it actually turned out to be better to partner with VisRT or Dalet. These innovative startup companies, small and eventually becoming medium-sized as they grew, actually represented the sort of the best way to lead the way with innovative solutions. So the interesting thing about small and commoditized solutions is that they often are where true innovation lies. And of course, the final thing is the business of delivery, the balance between small companies trying to do clever things on a commoditized platform still has to be squared with the business of how do you actually deliver it, how do you customize it for the individual needs of individual media companies. And it's that balance between a commoditized solution and a customized delivery that is probably the underpinning of the way we're building solutions at the moment. So where are we going? Are these things going to continue to appear? Are we still going to have lots of these interesting, innovative, small companies coming along? You only have to wander the floor of NAB or IBC to see that it's populated by dozens, dare I say, hundreds of startup wannabe companies who may or may not turn out to be large. And indeed, a significant objective is for them to grow to the point where they can be absorbed into a larger company. So there's a kind of steady state theory going on of constant new organizations being brought in through the commoditized world of open source and standardized software, creating this ecosystem of very, very complex, lots of different solutions, often very clever, some of them not so clever, and growing to the point where eventually they become absorbed into the mainstream. And that's where big companies like mine do come along and actually start to generate large-scale solutions. There was, in 1993, there was a wonderful cartoon, which the caption of which was, "On the internet, nobody knows you're a dog." And the key to this is that it's all about being anonymous. It's all about scale, working with large-scale companies. And most important of all, it's about competence. Are you a dog?
Thank you very much.
Grab that before it rings. Just in case it rings.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The three gents have done all they can to convince you about their views on the biggest potential for growth. If we move on to the motion, here once again is the motion. Remember, it's about growth potential. Is there anyone from the floor who wants to add any comments to influence the outcome of the vote that may have been missed? Oh, there's one here.
Could you just clarify the timing? You say in 10 years or less?
Why, in what way do you want that clarified?
We said 5 verbally, but
Sorry. Oh, it's a slide. Oh, sorry, I realise that's a slide out. 5 years. 5 years, guys? Is that what?
2020.
Yeah.
Or
20,
less.
yeah. 5 years or less. Sorry, inconsistency on the slide. Thank you for pointing that out.
What's the size of the business and industrial sector markets?
Surveillance video alone is 42 billion. Enterprise video is currently, it's a little bit muddled because of things like video conferencing. It's not being broken out properly. Headline figures are about 25 billion, of which if you take a similar percentage of the kind of stuff that we do, it's about 10 to 12 currently.
So,
I think that your list on the screen is incomplete, because I having heard all three protagonists, I really do believe we should have a fourth option, which is all of the above.
I agree with you, but I'm not going to change it now. Yeah, good point, Adrian. Far corner.
John, did you define what interesting means?
Interesting.
Does it matter about the base that it's growing off of? And does it matter whether it's addressable to anybody in this room?
Actually, interesting means that you're running your company. Where are you going to put your money in order to get more money back? Where are you going to invest your money? Which sector are you going to put it into? Because you believe, based upon the arguments from one of these three people, that that's going to give you the best return on investment over the next 5 years or less.
I feel like one of those hapless chefs on MasterChef.
Oh no! Oh!
Oh! Whoa!
Again!
We have a winner.
And the winner is David Peto. But a serious message, perhaps, that is a very important sector. They all do a great job. Yeah. Go on then.
Thank you.
There you go.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Thank them one more time. Let's have another round. It was good stuff.